History isn't just a boring timeline of dates and dead kings. It's a collection of incredible, bizarre, and sometimes terrifying stories that prove the ancient world was far stranger than any textbook would have you believe. From shocking rituals to technologies that defy explanation, ancient civilizations were more connected, more advanced, and way more surprising than we ever imagined. Today, we're digging up 25 unbelievable facts about ancient history that will completely change the way you see our past. Let's start with a big one. Globalization isn't new. Long before we had planes or even reliable maps, ancient people were world travelers. Romans were trading in India, Greeks were exploring Central Asia, and some historians believe Phoenician sailors circumnavigated Africa thousands of years before Vasco da Gama. The ancient world wasn't a collection of isolated bubbles, it was a sprawling, interconnected network of trade, ideas, and people. And what about the fall of Rome? We picture hordes of barbarians sacking the city, bringing an abrupt end to an empire. The reality was much less dramatic. The Roman Empire didn't just collapse in 476 CE. For most people, life went on pretty much as usual. The empire slowly faded away, weakened by internal conflicts and economic problems. Many of the so-called barbarians were already part of Roman society, serving as soldiers and even administrators. Speaking of barbarians, the word itself has a surprising origin. To the ancient Greeks, barbaros was simply someone who didn't speak Greek. It had nothing to do with being savage or uncivilized. The term just meant their language sounded like bar to Greek ears. It only picked up its violent connotation much later. Now, let's talk about power. We often assume ancient societies were universally patriarchal, but that's not the whole story. In the wary empire of ancient Peru, for example, elite women were highly respected brewers of a ceremonial beer called chicho. They weren't servants, they were high-status artisans, valued for their skill and considered central to the community's spiritual life. Here is a fact that sounds surprisingly modern. Some ancient Greek city-states had a form of gun control. They strictly banned weapons in public spaces like marketplaces and political assemblies. Bringing a weapon into these areas was seen as a serious threat to law and order. There's even a story about a lawmaker who accidentally broke his own rule and chose to end his life rather than undermine the law's authority. And get this, plastic surgery existed over 2,500 years ago. As early as 500 BC, surgeons in ancient India were performing advanced rhinoplasty, or nose jobs. Using skin grafts from the forehead, they reconstructed noses that were lost in battle or as punishment. These techniques were so sophisticated they laid the groundwork for modern plastic surgery centuries later. Climate change isn't just a modern problem either. The Great Indus Valley Civilization, one of the world's first urban cultures, collapsed because of it. Shifts in climate patterns caused the monsoon-fed rivers they depended on to dry up. Without a reliable water source, their massive cities were abandoned, and the population had to migrate. It's a sobering reminder that civilizations have always been at the mercy of their environment. When we think of the ancient Maya, we think of pyramids and calendars. But did you know they were also connoisseurs of smoking blends? Archaeological evidence shows they mixed marigolds with their tobacco, probably to improve the flavor. It paints a picture of a culture with refined tastes and perhaps complex smoking rituals. Some ancient practices were far darker. For a long time, historians thought stories of Carthaginian child sacrifice were just propaganda spread by their enemies, the Romans. But modern archaeological discoveries, including burial sites filled with the remains of infants, strongly suggest this grim ritual was a reality. The peaceful image of the Minoan civilization on the island of Crete is also misleading. Often portrayed as a society of artists and traders, the Minoans were actually formidable warriors. Their weapons and combat styles were highly influential, shaping warfare across the Aegean and beyond for centuries. We associate democracy with Greece and republicanism with Rome, but these ideas popped up elsewhere, too. Around the same time as the Roman Republic, ancient India had its own republican states. These Ganas and Sangas practiced collective decision-making and had forms of representation, proving that the seeds of democracy were planted in more than one part of the world. What about money? Before coins were common, the Neo-Assyrians used strange clay tokens shaped like pyramids, spheres, and cones to represent goods. Let's move on to ancient drugs. Over 2,500 years ago, people in Western China were cultivating cannabis specifically for its high THC content. They weren't making rope, they were using it in rituals to achieve altered states of consciousness. It seems to have been a valuable commodity, possibly traded along the early Silk Road. Without a longer text or key like the Rosetta Stone, the language of this entire civilization remains locked away. There's even a cash prize waiting for anyone who can finally crack the code. Here's a gruesome one. The second culture of ancient Peru created a vibrant, long-lasting red paint. Their secret ingredient: human blood mixed with egg whites. This disturbing practice was likely tied to their religious beliefs about death, sacrifice, and the cycle of life. It gets even stranger. In prehistoric Europe, some tools and weapons weren't made from stone or animal bone, but from human bone. Archaeologists have found daggers and other implements crafted from the bones of fellow humans. The reason for this unsettling choice is still one of archaeology's biggest unanswered questions. Sometimes, civilizations contributed to their own doom. The Nazca people of Peru, famous for their giant geoglyphs, systematically clear-cut their forests to make way for agriculture. This environmental destruction left them completely vulnerable. When a powerful El Niño event struck, the barren land couldn't handle the rain, leading to massive erosion and the collapse of their society. But not everything about the ancient world was grim. In ancient Egypt, people with dwarfism were not just accepted, they were highly respected. They held important positions as administrators, jewelers, and personal attendants to royalty. Their lavish tombs show they were honored members of society, not outcasts. Ever wonder about ancient ghost stories? A Mesopotamian clay tablet in the British Museum contains what is believed to be the oldest known drawing of a ghost. Even better, it comes with a detailed manual for performing an exorcism, complete with instructions for rituals and offerings to get rid of unwanted spirits. Some ancient technologies are just impossible. At least, they seem that way. In Siberia, about 12,000 years ago, prehistoric artisans figured out a way to soften mammoth ivory until it was like clay. They could then shape it, mold it, and somehow re-harden it. We have no idea how they did it. Modern science can't replicate the process, leaving us with a true technological mystery. And here's a final quartet of mind-benders. Ancient Romans used a potent form of concrete that was so durable, it could set underwater and is still stronger than modern concrete in many ways. Pre-Columbian cultures in the Amazon created a super fertile soil called terra preta by mixing charcoal and pottery shards into the earth, transforming the rainforest into a garden. The Antikythera mechanism, an ancient Greek astronomical calculator, was a complex clockwork device with a level of engineering that wouldn't be seen again for over 1,000 years. And finally, some Vikings were found buried with rings inscribed with Faral in Arabic script, showing a surprising connection between the Norse world and the Islamic caliphates. What does all this tell us? That ancient civilizations were incredibly innovative, complex, and faced many of the same challenges we do today: climate change, political conflict, and environmental destruction. Learning these forgotten truths doesn't just rewrite history books, it gives us a deeper, more humbled understanding of ourselves and our place in the long, strange story of humanity. History is a living subject, and with every new discovery, the story changes. Who knows what secrets are still buried, just waiting to turn everything we think we know upside down once again. Thanks for watching. If these facts blew your mind, hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the hidden corners of history. See you next time.